Hello YouTube. Here's another mystery from ancient Egypt, and I'm not sure most people know about it. It has to do with the so-called green heads. So they are named in the catalogs of museums. Artifacts of the late period in the Egyptian history, masterpieces of an unknown craftsman, or a few craftsmen. The first head is stored in Berlin, the second in Boston, in the United States. Only one thing is known for sure about the heads. They're made of greywack, a gray-green sedimentary quartz-like rock. Greywack is very hard. It is usually crushed into crushed stone. Greywack or Grewacke, German actually Grauwacke, signifying a gray earthy rock, is a variety of sandstone generally characterized by its hardness, dark color, and poorly sorted angular grains of quartz, feldspar, and small rock fragments or sand-size lithic fragments set in a compact clay fine matrix. The head from Greywack is a rarity with unclear value. Was it made just for beauty, or did the color have a symbolic meaning? And then all we have are guesses and assumptions. The heads, they could have been heads of priests, judging by the fact that the heads are shaved. But we don't know their names. There are no inscriptions on the sculptures. The sculptures are different in size. The Berlin one in Germany is twice as large. And they're not exactly identical, of course. The Berlin had got to the museum through a chain of intermediaries. So there is no understanding where it was made or when. That Berlin green head or Berliner grüner Kopf, Grauwacke, height 23 centimeters, the late or Hellenistic period of ancient Egypt, at the Egyptian Museum and Papyrus Collection in Berlin. Presumably 7th to 1st century BC, according to the museum. And actually this information, according to those who study this interesting ancient Egyptian artifacts, this betrays the helplessness of the researchers. The Berlin green head is considered one of the most famous works of ancient Egyptian art, along with the bust of Nefertiti, according to a description in encyclopedia. Well, why don't you compare it? Look at the bust of Nefertiti, painted limestone, 49 centimeters in height, Egyptian Museum and Papyrus Collection, Berlin. Look at the difference. Well, the Boston, again, it's more specific. It's head of a priest, Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. Egyptian, late period, 30th dynasty, from 380 to 332 before Common Era. This head of a priest, called the Boston Green Head, is the best portrait sculpture known from the late period. The face is wonderfully lifelike and individual. Light wavy lines indicate the furrows of his brow, and crow's feet radiate from the outer corners of his eyes. The top of his nose has a pronounced bony ridge. Deep creases run from the edges of his nose to the corners of his mouth. Thin lips and a downturned mouth impart an expression of strength and determination. The slight wart on his left cheek is unique in Egyptian art and also introduces an element of asymmetry, dear to the artists of the late period. And this was from Saqqara Serapeum, 1857-58. This is where it was found. Excavated by Auguste Mariette in 1858, given by Mohammed Said Pasha, Viceroy of Egypt, to Prince Napoleon Joseph Charles Paul Bonaparte, Paris. And let's see, by 1903 it was with Edward Perry Warren, Lewis House in Sussex. In 1904 it was purchased by the Museum of Fine Arts from Edward Perry Warren. Also, apparently Egypt was invaded in 343 before Common Era with ensuing destruction and vandalism. So the statue was destroyed. Apparently, after putting out fire, so to say, the surviving Egyptians honorably buried this head in the foundation of another temple in Saqqara, where it was found during archaeological excavations in the late 1850s. But what role did the heads, those green heads, play in the temples? Why this stunning realism uncharacteristic of ancient Egypt? Lines, folds of skin, even crow's feet in the corners of the eyes. Maybe it was just a genius sculptor who was born at that time, and the two heads is all that remains of his work. Well, the researchers apparently are arguing. They only agree on one aesthetic assessment. This is one of the masterpieces of the collection, writes the Berlin Museum. Exceptional craftsmanship, irresistible personality. The head was immediately recognized as a masterpiece. Boston Museum echoes that Berlin statement. Well, certainly you don't need to be an expert to agree with this. I also chose a few comments from the Russian internet pertaining to the ancient Egyptian green heads. I find them quite interesting, and I try to get as many worthy opinions from the Russian internet, for example, before I post my videos. It's interesting what people think in other countries, of course. Some people pointed out to the resemblance to the alien in the motion picture Prometheus, made by Ridley Scott in 2012. You decide yourself, but look at it. I don't want to include anything from the motion picture myself, but I'm sure you can find it on the internet. Let's look at some other comments. If someone had exhibited this Berlin green head with a whole nose at a contemporary art exhibition, I'm sure no one would have thought that some ancient Egyptian had sculpted it. Everyone would think, what kind of image, how impressive and concise it is, how relevant and realistic, and at the same time stylized in modern trends. A wonderful example of modern sculpture. Such perfection of execution, as if in front of you is not the creation of a sculptor, but the people themselves, who have become stone for some reason, and judging by the expressions on their faces, this incredible transformation happened quite consciously. The highest works of art, the surface treatment of the stone is unique. The creations of ancient civilizations are always amazing. Egyptian sculpture is scary. It is too much. It's like it was revived or something. There is something alien in these images. It feels like the material was not chosen by chance. The color and texture of the material create an additional effect of otherworldliness. It's like from other world. It's hard to tell from the photo, but both seem to have come from the same workshop, and it looks like the Boston dating of the object is accurate. At that time, Egypt was strongly influenced by the culture of Hellenism, which may explain the detail of the portraits. Green heads are beautiful. It's very expressive. It's just a pity that there are no noses. Then this comment. I was on a tour in Egypt, and one tourist asked the guide, why are many Egyptian statues without noses? And the guide replied that the Egyptians believe that the statues can influence living people, and this influence occurs through breathing, through the nose. And the barbarians who plundered the pyramids and other tombs of the rich and noble people beat off their noses to avoid the curse. It is possible that these are beautiful sculptures. The same fate befell them. The fact that they were found in Egypt does not mean that they were made in Egypt. Judging by the text, there was no analysis of where the source of material came from. Egypt, the Middle East, Southern Europe. The analysis was not carried out, but the grauwak or greywak was known in Egypt. The stone was mined in the Wadi Hammamat area near Thebes. In a publication by the Brooklyn Museum on Egyptian sculptures and reliefs from the late period and the Hellenistic era, it was indicated that these heads were made of green slate. According to A. Lucas, greywak is very similar to its related rocks, tuff, mudstone, and this shale. In addition, they share a common mining center, and they can only be distinguished on a microscopic level. Interesting, beautiful, especially the Berlin one. The only thing that reminds me is that in the Vatican museums, there are statues from the Roman temple of the Egyptian gods of the imperial time. They are also made of solid stone and with a noticeable Hellenistic influence. There has always been realism in Egypt, but it has not always been in trend, in fashion. The famous head from the collection in the Louvre is older than these heads. It's scary to say how many years, 2,000 years. The god Osiris has green skin. He represented the agricultural cycle. Maybe they were the priests of Osiris. Ptah also had a green face. He often merges with Osiris and other deities. The Boston Monument is a priest of Ptah from Memphis. Marriott found the head of his statue in the Serapeum, necropolis of sacred calves in Saqqara. It seems that they were created by the same sculptor. They're similar in terms of technique. I think they were whole statues, but only the heads were preserved. Interestingly, there are very few preserved statues of the Hellenistic period in Egypt, but judging by the fact that there is a characteristic protrusion behind the head, these were full statues that were installed against the wall. When an Egyptian was awarded the title of Most Venerable, his statue was placed in the temple. By the way, 363 before Common Era is not such an antiquity for Egypt. The ancient ones are the statues of Hemuinu or Ahotep, which are also very realistic. Realism is really great and not typical for Egypt. The person portrayed gives the impression of a very intelligent and very responsible, balanced, and knowledgeable person. The artists are different, the style is the same. This is modeling, but not cutting and grinding. You can try to set the period based on internal sampling. What I would like to pay attention to is that the eye incision runs along the level of the upper point of the junction of the auricle with the head. There are quite a significant number of images and statues whose eye incision is at the level of the auditory canal or channel, and a very small part of the images in which the incision turned out to be at the level of the earlobe and even lower, an anatomical feature that is practically not found in modern people. Somehow, it doesn't look like the Hellenistic either. Very Roman art, straight heads and made for their emperors. So I gave you the comments, and here we shall leave the subject, and who knows, maybe someday we'll find out more about the mysterious green heads found in Egypt millennia ago, and maybe we'll find out whether they were human beings or not. That's what I wanted to let you know, and if you like my research and my work, please subscribe to my channel. Please help me through the links, my research you will find in description to this video. Please tell others about my channel too. Thank you.